Hello, everyone. Rev Brad coming to you from the Touchline. Today's podcast episode features special guest Jared Watts. Jared, also known as Wattsy, is a corporate recruiter and finished his professional soccer career a few years ago. He reflects on some of that, and we hear more of his story, which includes time spent at IMG's academy, which back in the day was a special training environment for top soccer players in the U.S. This is a three-part series, so hold on to your hats. We kick off right after this.
He's found the space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Jared Watts, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Touchline. It's good to have you back. It's only been 3 years. Oh my goodness. We literally, the last time you were on, it was a pandemic and we were doing this by Zoom, and this is fantastic to be with you again.
I know it's been a little bit, but glad to be back on, and appreciate you letting me reconnect again here.
We had to wait for you to get your hair cut shorter before we could let you back on the pod, I think.
That's true. Short hair, no like crazy gnarly mountain beard.
No man bun, no none of that. Like, what's going on? You're cleaning up. It's like you're growing up, my boy.
Yeah, that's it.
Jared, since we last spoke, there's been a few changes. What's been going on in life for you in the last 3 years or so?
Yeah, man, a lot to unpack there. A lot of changes, a lot of good stuff. Probably the most exciting change. My wife and I had our first son. So he's now 18 months, which is crazy. Wow. It flies by.
Yeah.
But that's been honestly one of the greatest things, probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me and to us. And that's been really fun trying to keep up with him. We've kind of settled down and put some roots in Wilmington, North Carolina. We are in the historic district. We bought, an old house that was built in 1903, and we've kind of put our own stamp on it and had a fun time, never-ending projects, but that's been fun. My wife's an architect, so she's kind of the brains behind it, and I'm just okay, just tell me what to do.
You're the labor.
Yep, exactly.
You guys should do like a show or something, the Jared and Allie show,
What? This is trademark, so make sure that I want to make sure this is protected. But okay. Wattsy building.
Wattsy building. I love it. Yeah. I'm running down to the trademark office right now.
There we go. No, just kidding. I always give Allie a hard time about that, but she's like, that's not great. So, but that's been fun. And now, it's crazy to think, but I'm almost getting up to the point where I've been outside of soccer in my 5 years in MLS, and now I've almost been, 5 years out of the game, and 5 years transitioning out and into executive search and recruiting. And so it's interesting to think like, wow, 5 years in MLS, and now I've almost hit 5 years, outside of playing.
But truthfully, your playing extends beyond your pro years, right? And so when did you start playing soccer?
Gosh, I have two older brothers who were kind of playing, and I wanted to get involved and get started. And I was young, but I remember my mom always tells me this story. It's like we called it Mighty Might soccer at the YMCA. It was the first time I ever went out there and played like organized soccer. I sat down in the middle of the field and cried because I was upset that like it wasn't real soccer that like my brothers played. So I didn't want to play, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So thankfully I gave it another shot. It worked out. But yeah, I was probably 4, 5, 6, at that time.
Oh, and it wasn't real soccer. Like what were they doing with the Mighty Mites? Were they letting you pick it up with your hands, or like
just all chaos?
Yeah.
They were
bunch ball.
Coaches on the field, everybody's kind of falling around like a school of fish, and for some reason I just didn't want to be a part of it. So I sat down in the middle of the field and cried. There's people off on the side like picking flowers and all that. So who knows what I was thinking, but I'm glad I gave it another shot.
Oh my goodness. Well, and to have your older brothers that are pushing you and like, they're challenging you. I'm sure they take some credit for your career, right?
They do, and I think I owe them a lot because we were in the backyard. Like one of my early childhood memories, we always had like a big soccer goal in our backyard. We were lucky enough. My parents were just like, "Hey, if you want this, like we all love soccer." They would put it out there, so we would just spend hours and hours in the backyard and just playing. And as the youngest, like I was usually getting beat up on. I was getting, kind of the brunt of the force. And, I got to a point where I was getting close to being as good as my older brothers. And then they made sure like they would put me in my spot kind of. So
Sure.
it was fun.
Oh man, those days, those games, the backyard soccer is the best. It's funny. I've, just one of the blessings of being a chaplain with the team is different occasions, Easter and different holidays. You have people over, and then what do? You throw a ball down and start kicking it in the backyard, and I've had some great moments, and even my own daughters. It's funny. We didn't have my oldest daughter play youth soccer, and she went out for a middle school team one year, and the coach was like, are you sure she hasn't played soccer before? I was like, well, just backyard soccer with MLS guys sometimes, but yeah. And some cousins too that did a lot of youth soccer. So yeah, those are fun moments. So Tommy's 18 months now. What's he love? What's he into? What's he passionate about?
Right now, he's in a phase of like animals and he's obsessed with all the animals and like what noises they're making. So it's funny, my wife and him are actually at the aquarium right now as we speak, and he's very excited to see the turtles. So he's big into
Oh,
the turtles. We have a couple of turtles like bath toys that he's obsessed with. And then recently I had the classic Lion King big Disney edition book that when I was a kid, it was like one of my favorite books, and we still had it. My mom and dad kept it, and we've been getting him into the Lion King. So he loves lions. He like roars every time he sees a lion, and he's
oh
every
wow.
night before bed, he like wants to read that book. Like that's his go-to, or he cannot go to sleep. So
Oh, that's
that's
fun.
that's been fun.
Oh man. Yeah, what a great stage. Is there a good you said they're at the aquarium today. Oh, do they have like a zoo nearby? Like what's
It's the aquarium's probably like the closest equivalent that he can get to a zoo on the coast here. There's a pretty good zoo that's a little bit kind of closer central North Carolina that he hasn't been to yet. So that's a planned trip we need to go to. But so we're in downtown, and within walking distance, we have like a great public library with an awesome children's
mm,
museum connected to it. Just a couple of really cool parks and playgrounds. Like it's great because we're in walking distance to a lot of that, and he can enjoy that. And Allie enjoys kind of just walking him around the historic downtown and just checking everything out. So he's gotten to where he knows certain stops, and if we go by it, like he has to
uh,
stop and play. Or
yeah.
there's this, down the street around the corner, there's a neighbor with a water statue with a turtle shooting water out of it, and so he like has to go see Mr. Turtle, or
Oh,
he's getting into these little routines. But it's so
oh,
fun. I mean, he's
that's
starting
fun.
to be more vocal, and just I mean, yeah, it's just the best thing ever.
How is he with a ball? Does he get excited with a ball at his feet or
That's funny. My parents actually this week at their church, they had a little sports camp for spring break, and my parents were volunteering, and so they took him 2 days. And he's too young, he's not really involved, he was just there to kind of hang out. But just he got this. My dad was helping with some of the soccer drills, and just helping coach the soccer aspect of the camp, the sports camp. And he was getting out there and wanted to follow my dad around. And he'll kick the ball every now and then, but his big thing was he's obsessed with like the water bottle. So he wants to, and I laugh. I'm like, he's training to be a really good water boy, because he'll go and he'll line up all the water boys, and he'll want to share the water with all the kids. And so I think that's what he's more interested in right now.
no, that's okay. That's okay. We all start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, he's getting out there. Well, uh One of the things, Jared, that we talked about last time, you, of course, were a defender for most of your career, but you kind of had a different pathway. And as this podcast airs, we'll probably have a number of episodes. We'll break this longer interview into a couple of episodes. But you had a little bit of a different pathway. And I know that as we get set to air, we get into summer, the new youth season will approach August, the new developmental academy season will approach. You had a unique pathway in that you left home to follow soccer and the soccer dream. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of at least in the time that you and your parents did this, that was a pretty, well, you tell me what kind of choice it was for your family. Was it easy, difficult? But it was quite unique because it wasn't, it was kind of rare, wasn't it?
It was, especially where I grew up. I mean, I was outside of Charlotte. I grew up in a small town. I got involved in ODP pretty early on, which I think is still around, but I'm kind of aging myself now, where there was no development academy leagues.
Sure.
I was playing ODP, got involved with some of the state teams and then the regional teams and then some of the national teams.
Just to pause you there, if ODP is Olympic Development Program. And so it was, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but my sister-in-law was in this for a little bit, but they kind of take the best talent in a region, put them in a pool, and then kind of filter them down and kind of get the cream of the crop that way. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, you'd kind of think high level, big picture. You'd start within your state. And so you'd get together within regions of your state. And then, they'd kind of bring in the best players. And then you'd move to kind of a centralized state team, quote unquote. And then during the summer, you'd go into like a regional, like Region 3 was the Southeast. So anything from like Virginia down to Florida over to Texas. And so we'd all gather. A lot of times it was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or, we had one in Starksville, Mississippi at Mississippi State's campus. And then we'd do regional teams. So where they'd pick the best players kind of from the state teams to get together in a regional team. And then you move into the 4 regions, all get together for national team camp, especially early on, like that was like U14, very early stages of being exposed to like potential youth national teams. So that's how it all kind of got started. And I was on a pretty good club team in North Carolina, and then just got recognized and continued to kind of progress and move forward. And then luckily made it and was involved with the U14, U15, U16, and I got to the point where I was 15, U16. And then that's when with the residency program that they had, that's not there anymore in Bradenton, Florida. But, the U.S. Soccer residency program, you'd come down and you have around 40 kids that would be together and train and go to school. And the ultimate goal was to prepare for a U17 World Cup in like a 2.5-year cycle. So, and going, I mean, if you had told me like as a 8th grader or freshman in high school that like, hey, you're going to go off to school for soccer, like that was just a foreign concept. I was like, that's weird. Nobody did that. Like that was just something you never really thought about or considered. But I mean, the opportunity kind of got presented, and I'm very close with my family and still tight knit with my family and live close by with them today. But we were just like, hey, let's go for it. See, if you like it, you like it. If not, if it doesn't work out, hey, Lord's in control, but he's opening up this door, and why not? I mean, it's a sacrifice as a 15-year-old to go away from home and school and your friends, but these individuals because you spend time and you've played with them in the past. But it's definitely a kind of a new beginning in that sense.
So talk a little bit more about that, because residency today, as you said, the program doesn't exist, at least the U.S. soccer version of it, but many of the developmental academies are bringing in athletes, and they create these residency systems or programs, if you will. They have host homes. Some of them have a little bit different setups. But what was it like you knew some of the guys, the other 40 guys that were in camp, so to speak, or in the school, but describe to us a day in the life kind of thing. What did it look to train and do school? Like how did that all work together?
Yeah, well, and it was tough because you're still competing with these guys that you live with and you're spending time with every day, because at the end of a semester, you're not guaranteed to be invited to come back, right? So they're making changes. They're bringing in new players. Some are going out. Like I was there the first semester, and luckily I made it through every semester, and was there for the entire time. But that's the piece too. At a young age, I think it's tough to deal with. Like you're still competing with these players as they're your teammates too. So it's a weird, kind of concept there. But I mean, and talk about like commitment and focus, and you're waking up every day. I mean, 3 days a week, you're waking up and you're in the gym at 6 a.m. I was in the gym as, a 15-year-old working out at 6 a.m., going to the gym, lifting, whatever the workout was. And then you'd come back, you'd have a little bit of a breakfast, you'd get treatment. And then we were heading in over to practice. It's funny. We used to jump in the 16-passenger vans. We'd have to kind of drive around the corner, 2-3 minute drive. And, we were on the fields from about 9 to, I'd say 8:30 to 9 to like 11:30. So that was that. It's like soccer was your first kind of thing that you did, and you're focused. And then, you're getting off the field, you're going into treatment, you're having lunch, and then you're going to school. So school was almost kind of like, maybe a second thought, where you're going to school from maybe 1 to 5, right? In 4 hours, it's condensed, and you're having to, figure out, okay, well, how much school was really like, you got out of it what you put into it. Some guys were more motivated and just naturally wanted to study. Others weren't. And so, the coaches had to deal with that. The administration had to deal with that. But, as a 15-year-old with nobody truly looking over your shoulder, and yes, you're in class, but are you actually going into it and learning and, being a part of that. So it was the balance of school and soccer. And I loved it. I knew I wanted to go to college most likely. So I valued and worked hard in the classroom also, but
Sure.
Not everybody did.
Talk a little bit more about the classroom. Was it just the guys that were in the program on the team, or did you guys go to a local school and have classes like?
Yeah. Fun fact, myself, DeMarcus Beasley, and Landon Donovan all graduated from high school from the same school. It's not there anymore, but Bradenton Prep. So we actually were kind of timed and grouped together. So it was mostly we were in school with just our teammates and the people in residency. Every now and then we'd have maybe like a one-off of a regular student or normal student, but a lot of times we were just kind of bucketed into our own kind of classroom together with the teachers there, but it was mostly just the residency players. So it's like nonstop, right?
Yeah.
All day, every day.
See these
how
guys
do you
all the
disconnect?
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
How so answer that. Like, how do you disconnect? How do you, like, if you have a bad day or if you have a dust up with someone, how do you regulate that, manage, like get some time to yourself or get away from it? Like, I'm thinking these guys, you're in this intense program. It's soccer. It's a little bit of school. There's no girls. There's no like prom or homecoming or these kinds of things, right? And so you don't have those school life kind of moments that make it fun in some ways or lighter. How did you guys lighten things up? Oh,
It's
maybe
interesting
there's no
because
answer.
sometimes it did carry over. Like if you have a difficult practice or you get into it with a teammate, sometimes it would carry over. And maybe the guys lived together and it was your roommate, and there's natural kind of groups that would hang out. But I think it was important just to, whether it was an escape to, play video games and not really think about it, or I remember I had my guitar there and I had a couple buddies who played, music. And so we would just kind of, listen to music and try to play some music, or we'd go walk around campus just to kind of get out. But, there was a Smoothie King. You had to sign out. You couldn't leave campus unless you signed out, and you had to be a certain age. So, it almost felt like getting out of campus and going over, there was a Smoothie King. There was like a little restaurant you could go to, it was in walking distance, but that kind of felt like, okay, well, you're getting out of it for a little bit. So, but it's definitely different. Like it's not a normal high school experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think it helped me as a player. It helped me as a person. I had to grow up pretty fast, and just become mature. And as I was on my own, but people struggled. And then there were times where it wasn't easy, right? When you go through injuries and you're away from home and you're away from family, and maybe you're out of form, you're not playing well, but as a 15-year-old, like you're not used to that because you're always the best of the best, and now you're playing with best guys across the country.
Well, we're going to pause the interview there. Thanks, Jared, for offering such a unique perspective on what it was like to live away from home and work toward playing soccer during those later high school years of life. Jared's pathway was unique. There's a lot of different ways in getting into professional soccer, but leaving home to live a couple states away was a rare thing back in Jared's day. It's becoming a little bit more commonplace with the ongoing development of the youth academy systems and all these professional clubs developing more and more resources towards young, promising players. Well, I hope you'll join us next week for part 2. Jared shares about his ACL injury and some of the people that supported him during his time at IMG. So take care. This has been Rev Brad with Jared Watts, coming to you from the Touchline.